next up, I'm going to like to welcome our sponsors to the stage. From Playthrough Arabi and their CEO, Joseph Shomali, who has 15 years of experience of making games in the region. That's what his bio says anyway, which makes him ideally positioned, I think, even more so than Amjad, who's talking about government engagement, to talk about how to make your game MENA ready. I think he's coming on board. I can just see his face. I can see a static face at the moment. There he is. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Chris? It's been a while.
It has been a while. I know it's say I've not been out of the country. I've been out of my house since March. So it's very weird for me because I used to be on a plane every week, and now I'm not at all.
I can only imagine. This is the very first 12 months of my life. It's been almost 12 months since I haven't traveled for over 12 years.
Are you enjoying it? You look good. You've not put on any weight. It's annoying. I put on loads. You look quite svelte. Maybe it's a camera angle.
I put on weight. I lost weight. I think it's the same for everybody. It's like it's just you in the mirror now, and the wife. But I mean, basically that's it.
Yeah. I've got one of those. I've got one of those kind of like concave mirrors that just takes you off.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. I just every day I just bend it a little bit more. I think that's fine. We're looking good. Anyway, enough banter. I will let you. I won't eat into your time. So, are you ready to go? Shall I disappear?
Yeah, I should start with the share screen right now, or how it goes, right? So that
I'm going to disappear into. There we go. Looks like it's about to start. So I'm going to disappear.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. I'm Joseph. From Play Arabi, CEO of Play Arabi. We're a games publisher that focuses on the MENA and the Arabic market. What we're going to talk about today is how to make your game ready for the MENA region. I've watched the interview sort of with Amjad. Now, Chris and Amjad, thank you, Amjad. Thank you, Chris. Some of the questions we're going to be answering is genres and what seems to be working, what's not. But more importantly, we're going to focus on if you have a game and you'd like to bring it to the MENA region, what needs to be done. We'll be focusing on some parts more than others because there are some things that anybody can do, and there are things that will need a lot more focus. So we will be looking at let's say the general picture, the minimum required to get your game ready. First, let's take a look at, let me introduce myself. I'm Joseph. Like Chris said, I'm a CEO of Play Arabi, a games publisher that focuses on the Arabic language, the MENA region. I come from an industry background, around a bit more than 15 years in the industry. Worked in positions starting from development to production, product management, sort of a passionate person myself, although, the CEO thing, I have to look a bit less that, but yeah, I worked on games on PC, console, but web as in browser, as well as mobile. Most of what we do at Play Arabi today is really mobile, and let's get to it. So the MENA region. First question would be, what is MENA? And I think that is an important question. I'd like to define our MENA, the MENA, the way we look at it from the Arabic language. I'd like to separate regions such as Iran, Turkey, and some people include Afghanistan and Pakistan. That is, let's call it the bigger MENA. However, the one that I'd like to focus about is the Arabic-speaking MENA region. In our region, this is what we call MENA generally, because we are, like the slide says, there's one language that basically connects us. This is our focus, and it's a bit confusing for a lot of people, because they think that it's the same language with Turkey. No, it's not, or Iran, it's not. It might look the same, because Farsi and Arabic have the same sort of letters, but it is a different language and also a different culture. So our focus will be on the Arabic market. We're talking about 18 countries, over 400 million people, over 250 million internet users, over 170 smartphone users, all connected by one language. What I'd like to focus on is the lack of content in Arabic, not just in games, but everywhere on the internet. So less than 1% of content online is in Arabic. However, Arabic is the fourth most spoken language on the internet, one of the top 5 spoken languages on the world. But in terms of content, it goes around the 8th. So there's obviously a mismatch between the audience and the content, which also means there's a big opportunity. There's a discovery problem because people would be interested in consuming content and specifically games in what we're focusing about. Because when you're talking about games, you're talking about one of the top 5 languages in the world, right? And there are more games with that support Greek as a language than there are in Arabic, which you can basically imagine that there's a lot more people who like Arabic speakers than there are Greek speakers. So there's an obvious mismatch, and there's a huge lack of content. Means there's an opportunity. It's a welcoming market, and it requires a lot of more games, and that is exciting, I hope. Now, what is more exciting is what we will look at next. Press, including Nuzo, identifies the region as the fastest growing market in the industry. The percentages have been varying. Some say 15. When these are post-COVID percentages. Everything, the industry is growing faster for everyone, so that's great for everybody. The region is still the fastest. However, I'd like to note that this screenshot, it talks about Middle East and Africa in total. The MENA itself is part of it, and it is still the fastest growing. However, I honestly could not find something specific. Another thing I'd like to point out, please forget the icons. Somehow they managed to repeat the Asia Pacific for the Middle East. The map looks different. Look at closer to the map that I've shared before. And IGN reports that it's growing in billions in terms of population and speed. It seems to be going pretty well. Again, it is the fastest market, the fastest growing market in the gaming industry. And what is even more exciting, it contains the highest average revenue per paying user worldwide, hands down. The difference between what Game Analytics, let's say, reports as a global average between $25 to $30, and what Saudi Arabia is reporting as an average is 12 times. It's massive. It's great, honestly. So being in a region where people spend the most should be exciting for everyone. Should be welcoming for everyone. Should be a great reason to come to the region. Now, if you look at the definition of Nuzu for big spenders, they are payers who spend an average of $25 per month. They start to be considered big spenders. And if you look at the Saudi Arabian average, if you divide that by 12, you already know that basically every spender, or on average, every spender in Saudi Arabia is a big spender. So these are the records, and we get a lot of questions like, are you serious? Is this really the case? Because it sounds surreal. It does not sound, it's just really, it's much higher than the global average. And that is exciting, at the same time scary, because, when something is so far off, you think that what's going on and you're not sure, and you start doubting the data. Now, I'd like to confirm this information by sharing part of our experience. I'm sorry. So an example of one of our games, it's still in some sort of limited, let's call it type of a soft launch, Swords of Glory. It is showing us over $700 in average revenue per paying user. So yeah, these numbers are pretty pretty real. We're seeing it, and it seems to be, it's repeatable. It's happening. This is the region we're talking about. So it is an exciting region. So how do I get there? Now, a lot of people say you need to localize, right? Some people use the word translate. Some people use the word localize. I like the word adapt. So when you adapt something, it is you don't just make it close, but you make it feel like it is tailored for that certain audience. And adaptation means a lot more than just translating the language. It means understanding a certain culture. And while this is absolutely true for the MENA region, reports and experiences show that recently it is also true for other regions, including parts of Southeast Asia, even parts of Latin America, which are exciting regions as well. So it seems to be a requirement for a global gaming approach. If you have a game, you want to take it to as many people as possible, the better you adapt it to different cultures, the better chances you get in probably getting more users, as well as making more revenues. So what let's say what my opinion about adaptation includes is basically you need to fix graphics. So text, which means you need to translate the words, make sure the names are acceptable. So for example, if you're going to our region, we're familiar with very different names than the ones that are in Southeast Asia or even in Europe and so on. Adapting the story, making sure that it makes sense, it is acceptable by that culture. And of course, graphics. You need to make sure that the UI locations, they're familiar. The closer to a culture you get is better, as well as sound. So a lot of times you get a game with voiceovers that are in English, but or in Japanese, but the game is targeting or talking to a different type of users, which is a bit of a mismatch, obviously. And of course, if you have your game distributed on the stores or platforms, you need to adapt that. Make sure the screenshots, the text, the icons, the App Store optimization is correct. When it comes to marketing, the same. Two things I'd like to focus on a little bit differently is you also, for our region, you need to work on the monetization. You see bigger numbers, but the region monetizes differently. For example, we like the concept of VIPs, which is interesting. So people like to feel that they are VIPs. So if you have a special program for VIP players, bigger spenders, and so on, they get excited. They get more invested in the game. They spend more, and so on. You need to make sure the packages make sense. For example, for certain types of games, in different types of the world, you see smaller packages like $1 and $2. But if you come to the region, these types of games should not have $1 or $2, because then the users would feel that these games are a bit cheap, which is very funny. It's just a package to support those who would like to spend less. But on average, they're spending a lot higher. So that seems like a mismatch for them. That's one of the things to consider when it comes to monetization. Another thing that is important is please understand that while the average revenue per paying user is a lot higher, the conversion rate is lower. It's still a win. It's still better to take your game to the region. You still make more money per Arab user, or Saudi in this case, because it is the biggest country in terms of population and revenues at this point in the region. You still would make more money per Saudi user than you would make per a lot of other countries, including the US, China, and so on. Sorry, I basically forgot what I'm saying. Yeah, but remember that you would get less payers but more spending. And that is what you need to make sure that your game supports. Make sure that it can allow people to spend more, and you should expect a bit of less in conversion. At the same time, another thing that I'd like to focus on is live ops. A lot of people are talking about live ops recently, and it seems people are starting to understand that today's world in games is a lot of there's a lot of live games, what we call, which are games that continue beyond the release. They adapt with time, they change, they keep supporting the players, new offers, new events, new cool things, new content, new marketing approaches, even sorts of esports or smaller championships, and all that live ops are very, very important for a region that lacks social activities. Well, now COVID, everybody's lacking social activities, so that even makes it more for the entire world, I would say. But it's a region where, let's be honest, there's a lot of heat. It's somewhat hot. The social structure is not, it's a shy region, let's call it. People stay indoors more, and they talk online. So these things, you can focus on them in terms of features, in terms of live ops, which also means community support, being heard, connecting with the game publisher or developer is very valuable. So one of the things that you really need to focus on is also the live ops. Now let's get into a bit of details. Some of the easy things to look at is, okay, live ops might require professionals from that region. Monetization might require experts, right? But if you have a game and you'd like to get it there, what do you do? Let's talk about the features inside the game, including text and graphics, for example. Arabic is a connected language. That is the first thing you need to know. And I know it's hard. If you look at the first two rows in this slide, you see it is sometimes hard for people to realize that these characters are not connected. The last two lines are connected. So if you're doing translation, if you're doing graphics or things in the game, if you can notice this, know that the text is wrong. You need it to be connected, and it reads from right to left, which sometimes requires flipping the UI. Inserting gains, not in everything. And there are differences between the dialects and the traditional or the textbook, the things we learn in school, Arabic. Advice is generally focus on the traditional, unless you have special region focuses. For example, you'd like to focus on GCC, so you'd like to add a few words that would fit the GCC more, and that usually needs someone from that part of the region to advise. Finally, a lot of the things that we see are it is hard for someone that is not from the region, that does not have an actual background in this language, to realize that something's wrong. Because if you look at the last two rows, for a lot of people, they look the same because they're connected. They look, they're coming from right to left, but they're not really the same. The right one is the last one, which basically says, how are you? Or how is everything, basically. So our advice would be is, after you get translation and you have it ready, have someone that knows the language to look at it, to verify that it's working correctly. Generally not that expensive. Even if you know a friend and stuff like that, I'm sure people will be happy to help. Now, graphics. So graphics is a tricky part. So a lot of people say, well, graphics are global in general. However, some people are more comfortable seeing things that are more familiar. And more familiar does not just mean acceptable. Sometimes it also means culturally relevant. If you look at so these are examples from games we published. If you look at the one on the left, basically it's a modern warfare sort of theme, which makes sense for our region. It is acceptable, it is known. We added a couple of characters, basically added them rather, so all the other characters are made because they also fit somewhat, and made them look like they're coming from the region. So they were modeled based on basically Saudi Arabia in this case, and then added them in the title here, and that made the game more acceptable, made it more culture. So in this case, the theme stayed the same. What we added is a couple of characters to make it more familiar. In the other case, which is a sort of a sports game, a penalty shootout we once published, the theme of graphics, which is a bit cute, the big heads, big eyes. I'm not one to say, but it's close to manga. I'm not pretty good in the name, so please don't hold me to it. That might have some sort of connection with the region. However, when it comes to sports, a more closer to reality style is more accepted. It's more liked. So we had to basically change the entire concept of the characters, which is somewhat a big change. What you'd like to do is go for the little changes where possible. So honestly, my advice would be, if you have a game that has a total theme mismatch, then either it's a game that would make a lot of money, then it could be worth it. But if it's not, and we'll quickly look at those, then it might not be worth it. And that is an honest advice. So sometimes when developers come to us publishing, we just tell them it would be too much work to adapt this game to the region, and therefore we do not advise that you just take it here. Another thing about characters, because there's a lot of talk about the female sort of outfit in the region and what is acceptable and what is not. Honestly, let's be honest. All gamers are most gamers, let's say, are open to all kinds of things. However, there are things that would feel closer to your culture, and that is what you're trying to do. You're not trying to offend, judge, or decide anything. You're just trying to make things look more familiar to the players, because the more familiar something is, the better it reaches, right? That is basic, human psychology. People who would like what is more familiar, would understand it better, and so on. Sometimes you'd need to have a big change for that. For example, that is a character from one of our games on the left. Her name is Pandora from the mythology, right? We had to basically design a new outfit for her to feel more familiar. However, the next one, all we had to do, because the concept of the character required it, is basically just slap a bit of black that feels like socks and the stockings, and just to make it easier to accept for the players. But again, the recommendation would be always go for what is simpler, again, unless it's a game that's going to make you a lot of money. Then the more you adapt, the better you do. Finally, the real sensitive issues. There are a few issues that you just do not talk, allow, or discuss in the region. You try to stay as far away from them as possible. And the ones in red are the really, really sensitive topics. This includes religions, controlled substances or drugs, and politics. We try to avoid that. It is generally, it's a very sensitive region when it comes to these topics. So make sure. Why I'm saying this, because we've had developers coming to us with a beautifully made games about psychedelic trips based on the controlled substances you consume. It's a beautiful game and everything, but that is not a game you can introduce in this region. We've had a game that basically shows offense towards certain religions, which is open and accepted in other parts of the world, and very dangerous or very sensitive in our region. So we try to stay away from them. So these are topics that would make it very hard to bring a game to the region. You need to avoid them if you're going there. Other things that are a bit sensitive but more acceptable include alcohol and gambling. They're not very socially accepted, but they're somewhat okay. Yeah, so that's a bit of a scary part. Now, a cool thing that I mentioned VIP, so features that are very important to have, because again, it's a shy region that likes to connect online. If you have the more multiplayer or social features you have, generally the more successful the game would be. So for example, we play Arabi, we like games that have chat, that allow alliances, people talking together online and offline in whatever way, because it helps people connect, and that is a need we have. I think it's a need the entire world has now, because if like Chris mentioned, the C word that everybody has to talk about in every event there is. So because of the COVID-19, it's a need that everybody has. So multiplayer support is highly encouraged, and generally does very positive things in the region. And I mentioned the VIP again because it's a place where people like to be entitled, which I think is a need for everyone, but it's more so in our region. So VIP features, special VIP packages, and special VIP shops and things like that would do very well for the monetization in the region. Flipping is a bit funny because I click, then it takes a while. Finally, about the live ops, you can do a lot of them. Hopefully be able to do it on your own. Generally need someone that speaks the language, but you need to understand that someone, which type of focus they support. So for example, the Egyptian dialect is very different from the Saudi one, which Saudi one is close to the Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar, GCC and Oman, the GCC area. And then you have Levant, which is Jordan, Syria, Palestine, has somewhat of a common dialect in Lebanon. And then you have other parts in North Africa, including Tunisia, Morocco, who have also some sort of a different dialect. And this makes a difference in your support. So generally, it is very hard for someone from Morocco to communicate in their dialect with someone from Saudi or Iraq. I doubt they would understand each other in that dialect, so they would speak formal or traditional Arabic. So these are consideration you need to so if you're hiring for live ops in the region, make sure that the person speaks the dialect that you want to support the most. And same goes for other things. If you're working with events, you need to make sure, because they like celebrating national days and religious holidays and all that. But the ones that are specific in the region, for example, Ramadan, which is basically the Islamic Lent, the fasting period, is an amazing time where less installs happen because people are focused on what they have or what they already have, and they want to focus more on worship, focus more on spiritual things. But at the same time, because they have that content and more time at their hands, because the workday is shorter and all that, they would be spending more. So it's an interesting time of the year where you'd like to get as many users before, and then let's say shower them with relevant events during that that time of the year to make more money, because that's eventually everybody what was trying to do, to make them happier, to make them more comfortable. And as a result, of course, generally if players are happier, feeling closer, feeling that the developer, publisher of the game is closer to them, they'd be happier to part with their time and money into these products and games. At the same time, because I kept mentioning VIP is important, patent is important, you need to keep that in mind. Handling VIPs in the region is rather different. I've heard stories from people outside the region where they've had players spend over $1 million. That happens in a certain game, and they would eventually assign something like an account manager rather than just a, because eventually if someone has paid you $1 million and whatever, or it's like even 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, because we've seen players spend tens of thousands in our games, right? Whatever you're selling, even if it's a car, you assign some sort of an account manager, right? So it's the same concept, because if you have high spenders, you need to understand that they expect different treatment, and that is part of the things you need to keep into your live ops. Finally, other considerations, I go about them briefly. There's a lot of, let's say, details in each of them. Genres, which genres work best? Here's a screenshot from, it used to be Priority Data, Air Now data today, of the top top charts in Saudi Arabia on Apple iPhone, or like phones, not tablets. You'll see that the top grossing games are basically hardcore games. Why? Because hardcore games allow for deeper monetization. Most of them, I mean, you see like a Ludo game in there, which has also deeper monetization, which allows it. You will see that there are 3 that are just written in Arabic, and then you look at everything else. It is either a global phenomena or a game that has very excellent support for the language. So you understand that the support for the language and all that is important. However, like anywhere in the world, if it's a global phenomena like PUBG, there's a good chance. However, why do we see PUBG rather than Fortnite in here? And like you see PUBG and Call of Duty, understand that part of it is the themes, because I mentioned up there, because more realistic graphics, they attract our region more for some reason, and Fortnite is more, not as realistic. It's a different art style. So that also makes a difference. And then if you look at the free charts, you see casual games. Also, again, something like Among Us, which is spread globally. But that's the thing. If you look at US stores and a lot of stores in many countries, you see that even in the grossing charts, it's casual games. But our region seems to be more hardcore, and that is simply because, as we mentioned before, you have a higher average paying user and lower conversion. So if you have lower conversion, it means you're getting the money from those who spend a lot of money in a certain title, and generally hardcore games allow that more. The paid part is not a great business. That has been, we've noticed that before. So paid premium games is not which is part of the business model, does not seem to be generating a lot of money if you look at the reports. So that is something that I would advise to go with free-to-play business model when you're coming to the region. Focus is important, is what you'd like to do is focus on countries that are like the GCC for monetization, and then countries like parts of North Africa for the user base. North African users spend less, a lot less, however play more, again a lot more, and then the somewhat opposite happens in the GCC area. Finally, how do you get there? Just like basically everything, you either do it yourself or get partners, right? I know that do it yourself is it's a passion today, especially when everybody has a lot more time at home, which is something great. And the developers are people who'd like to do things themselves, and then at least to make sure that the graphics and the text are suitable for the region. Another great way to do it is build relationships with the stores, including Apple App Store and Google Play Store and Huawei App Gallery, which is becoming also pretty, which is growing very well in the region. They would help you, they would give you advice. They would not do the work for you, but at least that helps a lot. Or of course, get a publisher or a partner in publishing in the region, and there are a few of them. these are ways you can do to go to the market as fast as possible. I think I spoke a bit too much. I hope I answered more questions than I've raised. And I'm Joseph. You can reach me at Twitter. Happy to talk about your game, whether it's an advice or a partnership. For partnerships, also, you can reach me or the other team members and play Arabi in the event. Happy to answer questions, and would absolutely love to have more content in the region. We need it. People need it, and it's always great. So whether there's a work relationship or not, we're here. At least I'm here to help you. Yeah. So thank you very much. And,
that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. That was very good. You answered a lot of questions. I want to we are running a bit behind, but I'm going to give you one or two very quick ones. So be quick.
Yeah. Should I stop the sharing to see something else?
Stop the sharing. Yeah, stop the sharing. It's just, you want to see you. I want to see you now and your lovely.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
That's better. So I'm going to ask you two very quick questions, and we'll get on to Peyush, who's waiting in the wings. So you've already kind of answered questions about how an indie developer can find a good publisher. You've obviously talked to you or the other publishers in the region that are looking for content. So that's one question answered. I've got a question here about what challenges you see in cooperation between Western companies and the MENA gaming industry, particularly relating to marketing. Is there any particular kind of barriers there or issues to bear in mind?
I mean, so Western countries, you mean
it's not my question, it's Asta, but she said, West seems interested in MENA right now. What challenges do you see in cooperation between Western and MENA gaming industry?
I mean, if I'm talking extreme West, the first challenge would be the time difference. But other than that, if it's good business, good business.
I guess they mean like Europe and US, right? So like.
Okay. So depending on the type of the developer, rather than where the developer is, it's if you have a game that is already doing great, it is very hard for you as a developer or a publisher to be open to changing a lot. And that is a big challenge. And I would say that the Western developers, from our experience, are less accepting of change than the Eastern ones we've worked with. But that could have been our experience. Other than that, I mean, I think everybody everybody wants to partner up and do great business. So yeah, that's basically top of my head.
Okay, two super quick questions, because one's been asked twice, and then I've really got to move on. But can you shed some light on revenue from games made specifically for the region? I guess it's hard to say that. I mean, we talked about the industry being worth predicted to be 6 billion this year in the region, but how many of those games are made?
We can talk about a few examples. So one would be Revenge of Sultans Khams Salatin by developer publisher 1MT from China. They were doing up to $10 million per month for a while. So it's still one of the top grossing games, somewhat doing millions per month. So that is one thing. That game was specifically somewhat tailored as an SLG strategy game. Again, hardcore, sort of mid-core hardcore game. So that one. One of Babel's games is reported to be making $5 or more million per year. It's actually in the grossing charts where I showed. It's the Arabic Nida al-Harb.
That's why he keeps sending me pictures of his hotels, isn't it? That's right. I can see it.
Yeah, and you would see one of in the same grossing charts, one game by that is a card game, but it's more hardcore. So it's a Belot game that's doing hundreds of thousands per month. So that's the thing. I mean, if you're in the top 10, you'd be making millions. That's basically what you'd like to look at. Yeah. So yeah, you can see millions. If it's a casual game, which we've seen that aren't in the top grossing charts, because ads are not making a lot of money, which is something I did not mention. You'd end up with a couple of thousands per month.
Okay. So get in the top 10. That's useful. That's
top 100, and yeah, but eventually it can go up to 100 million per year or more. So
fantastic.
That is not bad, I guess.
Well, I'm going to have to. We're not your fault, my fault, really, but that was fantastic. Loads of questions all were answered during that session, and of course,
I mean, again, sorry for taking long. I tried because I was looking for time, and I have a problem when
it's
there's a
fine.
lot of data. Yeah. So there is a panel that includes, on Thursday that includes different cultures. I'll be there. There's a few panels where Samir Abbas is there, where Hussam Hamou from Tomaton is there, and so you can reach out to these people. You can reach out to me, to our team. Questions, anything. We're here to help, and because and I'm sure everybody is excited to bring more games into this very exciting region. There's a great opportunity, and there is serious need for content for amazing games. So I hope your amazing game will be next, and one of the next. So please come.
It won't be my amazing game, but hopefully someone in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at the audience when you're on a screen. So
Right.
look at the developers. It's very hard.
No, it's good. It's been good. It's been good chat. I'm going to let you disappear into digital ether, but
Thank you.
we'll be around as another members of the team. We're coming into talks later, so do seek him out, because yeah, they're good guys and they can help a lot with the region. So fantastic. Thank you very much. We're going to move along.